I ultimately forced my father to confront the full, devastating consequences of his failure as a parent. And it all started when he asked to have a relationship with me after abandoning me for 16 years. If I'm the monster here, I'll own it. I'm not sorry for what I did, but it would be good to know if I went too far, because the rest of my family certainly thinks so. My story begins with a ghost. My mother died of leukemia when I was just 7 years old. My memories of her from before she got sick are sparse, faded photographs in my mind. In her last year, I didn't get to spend much time with her. She was an artist, and until her hands grew too weak, she would create little collages for me from her hospital bed. They were filled with drawings, photos, and messages of her love. After she passed, my grandmother carefully gathered them all and placed them in a book for me. A final testament from a mother I barely got to know. To feel closer to her, my counselor suggested I start a journal, creating my own collages of words and feelings. I took to it immediately. For the last 16 years, I've filled at least one page a week, more when the grief was heavy or life felt particularly hard. That journal became a unique, unfiltered record of my entire mental and emotional state since my mother's death. 2 years after my mother was gone, when I was 9, my father, Robert, remarried. His new wife, Brenda, immediately tried to step into a role that was not hers to take, leaning heavily into the "I'm your mom now" act. Robert did nothing to stop her. Robert, in his haste to build a new life, made a critical error. He believed ignoring the past was the same as healing from it, a miscalculation that would sow the seeds of his future isolation. My life with them only improved slightly when they had my half-brother, Leo, because then Brenda mostly forgot I existed. Then, tragedy struck our family again. When Leo was 3, he was diagnosed with cancer, and just like that, I became invisible. I effectively ceased to exist for my father. He was either buried in work or at the hospital with Leo and Brenda. My teenage years were spent in a silent house, mostly alone, or seeking refuge with my grandparents. The family mantra became a weapon against me. Leo needs to be the focus because he might die, so you need to not be selfish since you are healthy. As one person later commented, it was unbelievably cruel of him to completely abandon me after my half-brother got sick. I had already lost my mom, and I was losing my brother, too. But he didn't think I needed any support or help. Any request I made for help, for therapy, for just a moment of his time, was met with the same cold dismissal. Suck it up. My own grandparents asked if I could come live with them full-time, but Robert refused, so I was trapped, denied a father who could even send a simple text saying he loved me, and denied a home with grandparents who would have cherished me every day. I got neither. By the time I was 16, I was in a very dark place and I just stopped trying to talk to him at all. The day I turned 18, I moved out and cut them off completely. A couple of years ago, my grandparents gently let me know that my brother, Leo, had passed away. I mourned him deeply. He was a good kid, and none of this was his fault. My parents had prevented me from spending time with him as he got sicker, so I never even had the chance to say goodbye. My grandparents respected my wish to remain no contact with Robert, but then, recently, he reached out to them. He wanted to see me. He wanted to talk. This reveals Robert's greatest flaw. His actions were driven not by genuine remorse for his daughter, but by his own loneliness. He wasn't seeking to heal my wounds, but to soothe his own. I learned from relatives that he and Brenda had recently split and were getting divorced, which is why he suddenly wanted me back in his life. Instead of agreeing to a meeting, I went to my closet and pulled out the 16 years of journals. I decided that if he wanted to know me, he would have to confront the girl he abandoned. I scanned the pages, entries where I wrote about feeling unwanted, quotes from our arguments, the raw, desperate entries from when I was seriously depressed. I compiled it all into a PowerPoint presentation. In that moment, I decided I would not allow him to rewrite history. I would hold up a mirror made of his own neglect, forcing him to see the reflection he had spent 16 years avoiding. The final slide was a photo of one of my mom's last collages. In her beautiful handwriting, it said, "Remember that your dad and I are always here for you." Beneath her words, I typed 2 of my own, "You failed. Go away." I attached the file to an email and hit send. My hand trembled slightly as I did. It felt like closing a book that should have been finished long ago. My goal was simple. I wanted him to see, from my literal perspective, why the door to my life was permanently closed to him. Evidently, it worked. A little too well. I imagine him opening the file, his brow furrowed in confusion. Then, the first slide appears, a child's drawing from my journal, my 9-year-old self expressing my sadness. Then another, and another. The words of a lonely teenager, his own cruel phrases quoted back at him. He would have seen the depths of my depression, the pain he swore didn't exist. Then came the final slide, the image of his deceased wife's loving words, followed by my brutal, 2-word verdict. He wasn't just gutted, he completely fell apart. He had finally been forced to look at the actual consequences of his actions, the pain he caused his own child. Soon after, my phone started ringing. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all telling me that while they understood my desire for no contact, what I did was unnecessarily cruel. They said he was a wreck. But as one online comment so perfectly put it, if the truth about your conduct paints you in a bad light, the problem isn't with the truth, it's with your conduct. His pain was the direct result of his own choices, not mine. I set hard boundaries with all of them. I told them if they truly care about him, they should get him into therapy or inpatient care, but they are to refuse to pass on any messages and to keep him away from me. I don't want to hear anything more about him. For their sake, I hope he pulls himself together, but his life is no longer my concern. I have empathy. I understand the immense loss he endured. I lost the same people, and I lost him, too. But I can't empathize with abandoning your child. There is no excuse. In the end, this was never about cruelty. It was about truth. The story reminds us that accountability isn't just an apology. It is being forced to witness the full, unvarnished impact of your failures. So I'll ask you, was this an act of justified vengeance? Or was it a necessary, albeit brutal, form of self-preservation? Let me know what you think in the comments.